Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning. Yeah, good morning, Rufai. The fuel scarcity in this country, we're back again.
Yes.
There are lines across the street where we are, stretching all the way down. There's traffic everywhere. People are walking. People are sweating. How can a nation that is supposed to be the largest oil producer in Africa, I think we're now second or third, be going through this? It is really, really bad. There are certain fuel stations that are selling fuel above 200 naira per liter. We have colleagues in the office here that can attest to that fact. This is also hampering productivity. For every single minute or every single extra hour that an individual spends waiting to fill up their car is an hour lost that it could be providing output for their company. We are not a productive country, and this makes things worse. And here's the thing, for anybody wondering why this is happening, according to investigations, the fuel marketers are blaming it on the ex-depot price. The ex-depot price is what the depots sell to the marketers, and it determines the margins at which they now sell to consumers. So that's what they're saying. But as far back as March of 2021, the NNPC said that the ex-depot price would not change, but it is happening. I was in Port Harcourt just last week. They were selling for 200 naira, above 200 naira a liter. So that 165 to 169 margin is gone, and it is impacting people as we speak right now. If you go out on the streets right now, there are more people walking, there are lines everywhere, there is incredible gridlock. We need to deregulate this market and end this repeated fuel scarcities that continue to impact on Nigerians on a repeated basis. For crying out loud, we have the festive period coming up in less than a month. You already have floods that are impacting the supply of food. The food that is actually produced in the farm still has to be transported to the end consumers. If you have fuel scarcity and you cannot get food from the farms over to our tables, that is also going to impact price as well. This is a serious situation, but Nigerians are just desensitized. If you stop somebody on the street and ask them, why is there no fuel? They say, I don't know. It is the way it is. It is really, really bad, and it has a ripple effect. The Naira redesign. Let's move to the Naira design. I'm glad you had the director of currency operations on, but social media has just gone agog with this thing. We call it colloquially Ninja Twitter. These are the designs. Now, what a lot of folks online, I feel like I'm going into what's trending territory now, but they're comparing the fact that there's been no change and it's just the color. That still counts. It still counts as far as what the Central Bank of Nigeria is trying to do with respect to reducing counterfeiting, reducing money laundering, and also, to some effect, trying to reduce inflation by restricting supply. Here is, let's take a look at, this is people just being funny. I think the current director of currency operations talked about Baba Blue a moment ago. So these are the kind of things that are on social media. You did? Okay, Dr. Abati, okay, thanks, you did. Now this is where things get a little elected official, Senator Sani, is saying if it's color, the CBN should have just engaged Snapchat. Let's not miss the forest.
He's not elected any longer.
Well, he was an elected official, and he's influential. Let's take a look at it. Let's listen to what the central bank governor, an excerpt from his press conference that actually Dr. Abati mentioned not too long ago. Let's take a listen.
And I think Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria is prepared at this time to move towards a cashless economy. And that is the reason why, following the redesign and issuance of this note, we would go forward to insisting that cashless will be nationwide. We will restrict the volume of cash that people will withdraw over the counter. If you need to draw large volumes of cash, you will fill uncountable forms. We will take your data, whether it's your BVN, your NIN, so that security agencies like EFCC or enforcement agencies like EFCC and ICPC can follow you and be sure that you are taking that money for good purpose.
Now look, again, so you put aside the Baba Blue and all of those are funny things that are online. Even the conversation around the costs. Number one, everybody has been talking about how this was going to cost a lot of money. By changing the color, they have actually saved the number of costs with having to go, instead of going into an in-depth technical or overly technical redesign of the currency. There is, of course, the issue with counterfeiting and having to reduce that. And as you've just heard the central bank governor, this is a matter of having to make sure that the issues of abuse and the issues of crime and also money laundering are also addressed. And also the inflationary aspect of this, where the governor explicitly said there that they will control supply. So even to Doctor's question, the final question he asked, where he said, I hope we'll get our hands on the notes. You might not get your hands on the notes. You're just going to get credit for what has been deposited into your account. And also the cashless aspect as well. So there's a myriad of solutions here that is being put forward by the central bank. So I know we can't ignore social media, but we do have a responsibility to direct people and properly inform them to not miss the forest from the trees. Yeah, they're still similar, but there is, of course, a difference, a clear difference as far as the color of the currency is concerned. To Kenya, the Afri-Exim Bank has provided some financial support to the government of Kenya. You see William Ruto there. You see Benedict Orama, president of the board of the African Export-Import Bank, a $3 billion facility that's going to assist them with a variety of issues over again. You know, Kenya is also talking to the IMF as well. Quickly moving next, still on Kenya, the central bank of Kenya asked Patrick Nduroje, the governor there, hike their benchmark interest rate by 50 basis points to 8.75%. Same matter as in everywhere else. They're just talking about inflation, which is above their ceiling. And then finally, we just talked about Kenya Airways and their increased flights to Dubai, although that's only for Emirates. But Kenya Airways is now prepping for December flights from Accra to Dakar, Senegal. Despite the losses, despite the issues, Kenya Airways, they're still moving along, increasing their routes.
Planes are meant to be flown. But, Roto, a lot of people are having, the fuel scarcity is madness. It's unbearable. And it's a clarion call that NNPC, those around should fix this, because I'm tiny bit away from buying my first black market, and I fear for my engine of my car.
It's a risk.
And it's a big risk. So, but as it is today, if I don't get fuel today, by tomorrow I'll have to buy black market to come to work. That's the sad reality of my life as I speak today in one of Nigeria's most populous Africa's most populous oil producing nation. But let's get the facts right. So I'm getting some rebuttals that it could be the marketers trying to have a run on the market. So the marketers are claiming the ex-depot price is increasing, but also, on the contrary, the folks out there are claiming the ex-depot price is not increasing.
Okay.
That it is some of the marketers that just want to hike the rate based on their cost of moving the service from here and there. Okay. And they've always talked about a rate hike. So there's this contention between the ex-depot, and that's why I'm going to send a message to somebody in NNPC now to even let's have a confirmation as regards the ex-depot price and what is causing all of this.
Is the solution not a deregulated market?
It is. I concur with you. Everything you say, I buy. But, we're journalists. We have to set the balancing mechanism, equilibrium on the table and listen to all sides. So we would like to hear some certainty from them as regards the ex-depot price. Because based on confirmation, to some other people claim they've bought at the rate of 180.
Above 200.
Yeah. Some say they've bought over 200, but some also say they've bought at the rate of 180. We have to balance every side out. But the most important thing is, I am as irate and as mad at the situation as you are. If not for anything, the fact that Doctor and I are thinking of getting a personal trainer because Doctor have had to run in the traffic consistently for 2 days and he's stuck in his car there for over 30 minutes. That hurts me because I love you so much, Doctor. And that particularly hurts me.
Cardio.
He's in his car
and
he has to come out of his car because he's stuck there for over 30 minutes and run to the studio, which I have also done. Secondly, as regards the Naira redesign, I think let's get it right. Yeah. A Naira redesign, a currency redesign that I have seen is not a big departure from the initial currency.
Yeah.
And mostly it's to enhance security features and have little tweaks that people can detect. And that's why I concur with the director of the currency operation. He was not going to tell anybody on air the security features they put in it.
Yeah,
because that's their own trade secret and that's why they did it. But the argument I have something with and that we have always put forward is the fact that yes, you are mopping up, to be able to stifle liquidity. You've increased CRR because you want to tighten things. Yeah. But the real cause of the inflation you are fighting are those legacy issues, like this fuel problem.
Exactly.
Because this is going to have a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
And he's like he's responded, I can only handle
my monetary side. That's all they can do.
And he can pass it on to the other people.
The fiscal side.
So, but I think the earlier the fiscal side and the monetary side collide and work, then we can have a better country.
Let me start with Kenya. Kenya has increased interest rate, benchmark interest rate by
50 basis points.
Yeah, okay, 50 basis points. In September, they did 75 basis points.
Yeah.
And what Kenya has done is consistent with what some other countries are doing. They are not coming up with these outsized rates anymore, because there's some optimism that perhaps, in 2023, some of the tightening of the monetary policy that many of the central banks have introduced before now, would yield some positive outcomes, which is the position of the OECD with regard to the Eurozone. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand only this week increased rates, but also by just 75 basis points, although the highest in 20 years, but inflation rate at 4.25%. And then you also have the example of Nigeria, that did 100 basis points because we're trying to address issues. But the standard practice is that, with the exception of Japan and Turkey, you'll find many of these countries watching high inflation carefully and trying to be cautious. Inflation in Kenya is over 7%, right? And so what Patrick Njoroge and his team, what they're trying to do is to see how they can tread cautiously. Anyway, that's that about that. As for the Naira redesign, Baba Blue and all of that, I think at the end of the day, the thing we need to focus on is the value of the Naira itself.
Yes.
The CBN governor was saying they're going to pull out high denominations from circulation. They're going to ask for a lot of data. Okay, this Naira that we're talking about, what is actually the value? This 200 Naira that has been redesigned, it's just 50 cents. US dollars. The 500 Naira is 1.01 US dollars. The 5,000 Naira is just $2.
1,000.
The 1,000. The 1,000 is just $2. So the bigger issue that we need to worry about is the value of the Naira. As for fuel scarcity, yes, it's a source of nightmare for all of us. And the standard excuse, the marketers say they don't have supply. They say they have this as depot. Well, the director of currency operations says they don't have that problem in Abuja, but we have it in Lagos.
Yes.
Why? And if you calculate the cost in terms of business, public health, it's horrendous.
Well, we have to go now, but I have to just say something, in terms of the fuel scarcity. I stand with you, Rotus, the regulation. For a very long time, you have been speaking about this, and it is, you wonder why there's such a reluctance to obviously myriad issues around this, but just to make a case for the ordinary Nigerian that it, as you mentioned, productivity is at its lowest already, and with fuel scarcity, time is money. So when you make a business case for time spent on the queues, it is absolutely ridiculous, and we need to stop being used to saying, it's almost like a gift that comes every half or every quarter. Something has to give. Anyways, for Global Business Update, thank you very much, Rotus. Michael Wilson joins us now from London.
Hello there, good morning. Bank of Korea has opted for a smaller rate hike than expected. Asia markets have risen basically because they feel as though there's a slight softening stance from the Fed. They saw those FOMC markets yesterday, and there is this kind of general feeling that the Fed will start to keep its mind on inflation, but interest rates will be slightly softer in the future. That's what they're thinking. Anyway, so Bank of Korea up by 25 basis points, a quarter, and the Korean won actually strengthened as a result of that. Shanghai Composite in China fell very, very marginally indeed. However, the underlying concern from China once again is COVID. The cases around 28,000. That's near levels seen in April during that stringent lockdown that we saw in Shanghai. And it really is, we're wondering about that. And of course, it also affects Zhengzhou, which is the home of China's largest iPhone factory. And on that, Foxconn, moving to the next story, have actually said that they've got some rather sort of labour problems here. They're talking about technical errors which occurred when hiring workers in China at Foxconn. Not quite sure what they mean by a technical error. It's all a bit opaque, all this. But apparently hundreds of workers joined protests at Foxconn's flagship iPhone plant. Some men smashing surveillance cameras and so on. The company said in a statement it will continue to communicate, as it puts it, with employees and try its best to solve concerns and demands by them. And basically, all building up to where this COVID policy will actually go, I think, as far as China's concerned. Taking a look at the United States now, and stocks closed for a higher day. I can't bring you a futures market because there's no point, because everything is closed in the United States for Thanksgiving Day today. But basically, what we're talking about is the signal from the Fed that interest rates, if they have to come, which interest rate rises which have to come, will be slightly softer. Shares of Nordstrom fell. That's an important retail one. And Tesla shares have risen by 7.8% as Citi upgraded them. But basically, the big news is from those FOMC minutes, which actually imply that the rate of increases in the interest rate in the United States will be softer and perhaps slightly reduced. Well, same thing really, isn't it? I suppose. Hoping that will actually help. And also we got the jobless claims a day earlier because of the markets being closed, everything being closed for Independence Day in the United States. And they came in slightly higher at 240,000, 225,000 expected. Does that mean that the labour market is weakening? Very possibly. Apple and Elon Musk's Twitter are on a collision course now. These little scraps come out, don't they, of Twitter at the moment. Apparently Musk wants to increase the amount of money that the company makes through subscriptions. Well, we sort of know that. But now he's opening up the site to more free speech. And of course, that could violate the present agreements that Apple and Google have about free speech rules and so on. And also Musk has been saying that the actual that getting on those so-called app store fees, if you follow me, between 15 and 30% of digital sales, and that's too much as far as he's concerned. And I did say that that Tesla had actually gone up very slightly, but the feeling is, once again, I feel as though I'm not quite sure where the great brain is actually focused at the moment, and I think that tends to worry investors. But as I keep saying, the rules of social media are getting tighter and tighter, and Twitter will just have to cope with that. It is an interesting turn of events now in the United Kingdom. Both businesses and unions apparently have been turning on Rishi Sunak and saying, look, he promised to make a bonfire, a so-called fire of all the EU regulations. Well, actually, that creates so much uncertainty that we don't actually want that. Now, whether this is anti-Brexiter propaganda coming out from the Financial Times and papers which supported Remain in the UK, or whether it actually is true, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, business and unions have written to the Prime Minister and said, please don't make a bonfire of those rules too quickly, because if you do, it'll add to the uncertainty. We've got enough to worry about with rising prices and also rising inflation and rising energy costs as well. And in addition to that, Sunak has apparently backed down on the fight that he's been having with the Bank of England. Now, the government wouldn't say it's a fight, but it is. It's a battle. What the Sunak's administration had been proposing is that if things are seen by politicians the city is too regulated and therefore can't take advantage of post-Brexit opportunities, whatever those might be, then the politicians would have the right to call those rules out. Well, the Bank of England is saying, no, you don't. And it looks like that Sunak has given in to the Bank of England. We talked yesterday about Man United and its proposed sale. Do you want to look at some sort of possible bidders? I mean, we did talk about Jim Ratcliffe yesterday, who's a lifelong supporter, but he probably could not afford, that's the feeling. So it would need Jim Ratcliffe plus maybe some American money to come in. Nothing from Russia, clearly, obviously, for obvious reasons, and nothing from China because of government regulation. So we're really looking towards the United States now. Some names which have come up, Josh Harris and David Blitzer. They're both basketball, they're both private equity people. Basketball mogul Stephen Pagliuca and Larry Tannenbaum. They were shortlisted for the Chelsea takeover and they didn't make it there. But the most important news is that David Beckham has been apparently, according to his many agents, been open for suggestions as to possibly fronting whichever bid it may be. And that would be a good talisman for any kind of takeover as far as Man United is concerned. You have to say, though, that Man United fans, myself included, have had a long history of hating every owner that possibly gets in the way of our wonderful football club and the harsh realities of capitalism. And of course, that shouldn't happen, should it? But I mean, that's how football fans are. They care more they care more about what happens on the pitch than they do about the nasty business arrangements that have to be made to take advantage of a franchise that reaches about 1 billion people across the globe. That's how big Man United is. And finally, as far as the UK is concerned, the pound has actually hit sort of levels that is about the kind of level that it was before all the shenanigans with Liz Truss and all the rest of it. The move apparently is due to fears about, I don't share these, but fears about the US economy. That's made the dollar slightly weaker and thus sterling slightly stronger. And finally, oil prices. Again, I won't quote specific prices to you because those change minute by minute. But the figure, they're marginally higher yesterday, oil prices, and they will continue to rumble. But we got OPEC Plus in the sidelines deciding whether or not to cut production. We've got China slowdown because of COVID. So, really all up to play for, but slightly higher prices this morning. But that could all change within the next 10 minutes.
Thank you, Michael.
That's the global view.